Today I will explore and write a song with the harmonic major scale. What is the harmonic major? It's just the major scale with a flat 6. So it sounds like this. We'll be in C today. So that's the C major scale. It's called harmonic because it has an augmented second between the 6th and 7th degree. Sounds a bit like the harmonic minor with that little augmented second, except it's a major scale. It's definitely a major scale because you get the tonic, which is a major chord, and also you get the dominant 5/7 chord that leads back to major 1. So it's functionally very, very similar to the normal major scale, except that flat 6 adds a tinge of very poignant tension. So I prompted ChatGPT to give me a joke about the harmonic major scale. Here's what it came up with. Why did the harmonic major scale go to the doctor? Because it felt a little bit flat. I mean, ChatGPT is an infinite source of stupid dad jokes, but it's very apt because it feels like harmonic major is the major scale afflicted with a little bit of flatness. It feels a little bit sadder, a little bit tenser, and it's quite different even though it's just one little note different. So the first thing I do when I work in a mode like this is I see what chords I can build from the notes in the scale, what triads I can build. The major 1 becomes a major 1, it stays the same. The minor 2 from major becomes a 2 half diminished. The minor 3 stays a minor 3, but you also get access to a major 3 and a major 3 dominant, which is not found in the usual major scale. The 4, the major 4 chord becomes a minor 4. That one really gets me in the feels, especially when you resolve back to 1. Now the 5 chord stays the same. It's still a major chord, still a dominant chord, except now you could add a little flat 9 to it, which is dripping with tension and resolves very beautifully to the tonic. The minor 6 chord, which is a big hallmark of the major scale, now becomes a flat 6 augmented, which is completely different functionally and otherwise. We'll get into more details a bit later. And the 7 chord, which in C major is B half diminished, now is B full diminished. And we get bonus chords because that B fully diminished, being super symmetrical, is also D fully diminished, F fully diminished, and A flat fully diminished. And we have another super symmetrical chord, which is the augmented. That A flat augmented is also C augmented and E augmented. So now we have all the chords that we could build in that mode. What I usually do is I just start playing around with the chords. So after a while of playing with those chords, I came up with this progression. So C, A flat augmented, D half diminished, G7, back to C. So I essentially zoned in on a 1-6-2-5-1 progression. It's very common. In C major, it would be C, A minor, D minor, G7, C. But now it's a bit different. C, A augmented, D diminished, G7, C. And even if it's the same numbered chords as in C, functionally, I feel like it's a bit different. And the big difference here is not the 2-5-1. Which feels like you would expect a 2-5-1 to feel, but it's in the 6th chord. In C major, that A minor feels like a tonic chord. It doesn't really build tension. It sort of stays in the same place with a little bit of difference. And then when you go to D minor, you start building a little bit of tension. And then the tension hits its peak on the G7 and you want to resolve back to C. But in C harmonic major, when you go to A flat augmented, you really build the tension up to a peak right there. And then from A flat augmented down to D half diminished, which is a tense chord, but it feels like the tension goes down a little bit and then goes down a little bit more on the G7 and then goes fully down back to the C. So the tension curve is way different. Here it's flat, flat, a little bit more, hits its peak, back to tonic. And in C harmonic major, we go from none, a whole lot, a little bit less, a lot less, none. So just flattening that 6th degree changes the whole tension structure of this very generic chord pattern. So now here's a little bit of song I wrote with that chord pattern. And to demonstrate the difference between the C major scale and the C harmonic major scale, here's the example in normal plain vanilla C major first. And now by flattening that 6, we go to C harmonic major and see how that feels. Lost in the night, all is bright. Lost in the light, all I want is you. Wow, it's a totally different beast. Ooh, but it sounds very jazzy, and that's not really what I was going for with this song. I wanted something more folksy or poppy. So I made some slight modifications. Instead of that 2nd chord being A flat augmented, it's now E dominant 7, which is almost the same chord. It's just that we take that C and lower it to a B. And instead of that 3rd chord being D half diminished, it's now F minor. And since D half diminished, or D minor 7 flat 5, is like F minor with a bass of D, it's just that we remove the D to get F minor. So they're almost the same chords, except they feel quite different when you play them one after the other. So this sounds a lot more like a pop folk song. That dominant 7/3 chord is a sound that we're very familiar with in pop and folk. That minor 4 chord is also something very familiar. So now here's a little bit of song I wrote with this progression in C harmonic major.
Night after night, it's all it takes. Night after night, a million mistakes.
It sounds alright, but I felt like I lost the feel of harmonic major because it sounds very similar to the same thing, but in C major. Here's what that sounds like in plain vanilla C.
Night after night, it's all it takes. Night after night, a million mistakes.
So it sounds very similar, except we're using that major 3 dominant chord as sort of a secondary dominant to lead us to the 4, and the 4 is F minor, which is a very common modal interchange borrowing from C minor at this point in normal chord progressions. So I felt like I was not really drawing from a pure harmonic major sound, really like getting into the feel of that specific scale. So I decided to add an E natural in the vocal harmonies on the F minor, which moves it away from a modal interchange with C minor.
Night after night, it's all it takes. Night after night, a million mistakes.
But I still wasn't satisfied. I felt like it wasn't enough of a harmonic major feel. So I decided to plumb down and write another bit which would include that flat 6 on the tonic. So an A flat on a C major chord.
Love.
Very tense. And on the F minor, I decided to blast a B natural, which is definitely not in C minor. It gives an F minor sharp 4 feel, which is very tense and very crunchy. And to really hammer that flat 6, that A flat, I included it in the vocal melody on the dominant 7G, which gives essentially a feel of a G7 flat 9. Which is very tense and really hammers home the feel of that harmonic major by really hitting that flat 6 a bunch and making sure that the F minor doesn't feel like just modally interchanged from C minor. Now, to fully appreciate the feel of C harmonic major, here's that bit, but in plain vanilla C.
Living it all, losing my shame, giving it all, reaching my fate.
And now to hammer the point home a little bit more, here it is with that secondary dominant major 3 chord and that modally interchanged F minor from C minor. And on that secondary dominant E7, that A flat feels more like a G sharp, like a sharp 5, because it builds tension that wants to sort of resolve on the A. Now we're sort of on the A on the C, and we resolve back to that G sharp on the E7. And on the F minor, I'm going to hit a lot of those notes from the C minor scale. I'm going to hit a B flat, an A flat, and an E flat, which puts us fully in C minor. It gives a totally different sound from that B natural. So here's what that sounds like.
Giving it all, losing my pain, living it all, losing my shame.
So now here's that bit in pure C harmonic major with that flat 6 on the C, that B natural on the F minor, and that flat 9 dominant chord on the G. So future David here, I added an extra bonus. I threw in a G natural on the electric piano on that E7 dominant chord to really hammer home the fact that it's not a G sharp but an A flat. So that G natural is acting like a sharp 9 on that chord.
Living it all, losing my shame, giving it all, reaching my pain.
So for the ending of the song, I wanted to hit a 6, 4, 1 cadence to really hammer home the folksy poppiness of the song. Here's what that sounds like in pure C Ionian.
I can't believe I let go of your love. I can't resist the embrace of this here.
But in C harmonic major, we don't have a 6 minor chord. We have a flat 6 augmented. That 4 is minor. Sounds all right. Let's try it out.
I can't believe I let go of your love, but I can't resist the embrace of this here.
That augmented chord really feels gnarly in that place. It's not like it doesn't work at all. I suppose you could get used to it, but it feels like when you see a shadow at night that sort of looks like a person, and it really spooks you. And even though it resolves, you see that it's just a chair with a coat on it, you still feel uneasy inside. And that's what that augmented chord does to me, even though it resolves nicely to the F minor and to the C, I still feel weird about it. It leaves me feeling uneasy, and that's not what I want for the ending of this song. So I've been mentioning modal interchange with C minor as something I wanted to avoid because I wanted that pure harmonic major experience. But at this point, I think I'll cave in and abide and just borrow a chord from C minor instead of that A flat augmented. Let's just use A flat major. By making that E natural E flat, we make that A flat chord a lot more palatable. So now hear what that sounds like with the borrowed chord from C minor.
I can't believe I let go of your love, but I can't resist the embrace of this here.
quite nice. I think we got it. That's the feel I was looking for. So now if we join all the bits together, including the beginning of the song, which was in Phrygian flat 4, which is relative to C harmonic major, as in they contain all the same notes except the tonic is different, we get a song that's fully in one key, essentially the C harmonic major or E Phrygian flat 4, except for that one chord at the end, which we borrowed from C minor to smooth things out a bit towards a resolution. So now here's an arrangement with my Taylor guitar, my Telecaster, and I'm trying some nice melodic bass lines with my Rickenbacker 4001. The synth strings are from my Roland SRX plugin, which essentially replaces my Roland Vintage Synth module one for one. It's exactly the same sounds except in a VST plugin. It's a lot more convenient. So here it is.
Let go all of your fear. It's time to find your way out. It's near. I can't believe I let go. I'm sinking under the weight of lose yourself in my embrace. Leave this place without a trace. And I found you I'm near you. Night after night, it's all it takes. Night after night, a million mistakes, living it all, losing my shame, giving it all, reaching my pain. And I can't believe I let go of your love, but I can't resist the embrace of this. Here,
All right, that was a really interesting journey into harmonic major and Phrygian flat 4 at the same time. Flattening that 6 has a lot of consequences on the major scale. I mean, it feels like flattening the 6 is a lot more consequential than flattening the 7 to get Mixolydian. And Mixolydian is quite different from the major scale. But I think harmonic major is even more different than Mixolydian from the major scale. See you in the next one.